welcome, particularly Sarah and Nabil. I think this is your first time, so especially welcome. So MindWatch is an experiment that Ashok and I have been working with. This is episode 5, so we've been at it for the last 4 weeks. This is the 5th episode, and the idea of MindWatch is to practice metacognition. That's been the primary objective here. So to notice how we are thinking while we are thinking. And we've been working with different kinds of perspectives and topics over the weeks, and it's been an interesting experiment. And you will notice as we go along today that we fall off the wagon very often, and then we attempt to come back to it. And so it continues to be a living practice and an experiment. The structure of the conversations is that for about the first 50 minutes or so, Ashok and I are in conversation about the topic for the day. And incidentally, for today, it is morality. And then we start opening it up to engage everyone who's present live. And also, just to state on record, the conversation is being recorded. It will be put up on Ashok's YouTube channel at a later point. So just to let you know. And so as Ashok and I are conversing, if there are questions or reflections, or even things you want to challenge us on, please start putting them up on the Zoom chat. And then in the later part of the conversation, we will start taking up those threads and see how we move forward from there. And if the group continues to be small in size, we may also invite some of us into the conversation at a later point. So that's the broad structure. And since I have the mic, I will probably also continue into my opening thoughts for today, and then hand it over to Ashok.
Can I just add something, Rukmini, before you start with your thoughts? So I want to also just put it out there that this is really conversation between Rukmini and me. And this is not a dialogue in that we give everyone an opportunity to have their say. That's part of what makes this an experiment. And that might not work for some people, and I respect that. But here's why this experiment is important for me. In my experience of dialogue, and I have been a dialogue facilitator for almost 40 years, multi-party dialogue, particularly over short stretches of time, an hour and a half, 2 hours, even if it's in person or in Zoom, tend to get very diluted. You can't go into depth. And depth really happens between 2 to 3 people over stretches of time. So, Rukmini and I, not because we think alike on topics, but because in my experience of having worked with Rukmini, she is she has an exceptional capacity to be very thoughtful and deliberate, and uh, therefore is a very good partner, conversational partner uh, for me. And that's why for a very long time, she and I will be talking. 50 minutes to listen to 2 people is a lot. So I beg your indulgence. And hopefully you will find value in the way we try to deliberate over a topic. It will not be always very focused. We will take the liberty of spinning off into areas in order to explore depth and complexity, which will naturally make the conversation messy. I'm saying all this because we've gotten feedback from a couple of people who attended saying they were uncomfortable with the format. So the fact that you folks are here is wonderful. And I want to make sure that you stick around. So that's the main thing. We will, time permitting, take questions. And if your thoughts or reflections on chat uh, seem to gel with where our conversation is going, we will share that with the larger group. So, sorry, that was a long one, but it's primarily because of feedback we got after the last session that I felt it was very important to say this is not Ashok's courses, 12 session courses. This is not my, Zeitgeist Zero conversations on topics. This is a very different conversational model. Over to you, Rukmini, to launch off on our topic of the day.
Sure. Thanks, Ashok, and that's useful orientation for all of us as well. So thank you for that. Welcome, Yona. Good to have you back. We just started off with setting up the structure and the context for these conversations, which you're familiar with. So coming to our topic for today, if there's one thing that cuts across ideologies and belief systems and even political allegiances for that matter, it's the fact that almost everyone thinks they are on the side of the good, whatever good is in that context. And of course, we don't always say this out loud, but it shows in the tone that we take. It shows in the words we choose. It shows also in the confidence with which we defend or denounce something or someone. And that's morality. And it's a strange thing in terms of how morality functions. You know, it was probably meant to be an inner compass, but it can also act and function as a kind of an identity performance sometimes, and sometimes also a protection bracket of sorts. And so we often invoke justice in the name of morality. We talk of standing for what's right. And I often wonder, particularly more so in the last few years, around how often are we standing behind morality and using it as a shield to not scrutinize ourselves, you know, using morality as a shield to avoid complexity and and this morning I was meditating on the topic, and as Milan Kundera's unbearable lightness of being came to mind, and I was thinking of this whole unbearable ambiguity of being human and how morality is also used as a shield around that. So therefore, I'm coming into this conversation today not so much to expound on morality as much as to really observe what it does to me as a human being, how I speak when I believe I'm moral, how I listen to or not listen to when someone or something is not framed in a way that is moral. And also, I'm also thinking about, can I think at all if I'm attached to the idea of being the good one, of being moral? I mean, is thinking even possible? Forget metacognition. So yeah, those are questions I'm holding as I step into this conversation. Ashok, how are you coming into this?
Wow, you really covered a wide range of uh, wide number of angles to morality. And yes, there's a part of me that wants to respond to much of what you have said, but I think instead I will take you up on your invitation to talk about how I'm coming in to this conversation. Like most people throughout my life, I saw myself as moral. An uncle of mine, my favorite uncle, once told me uh, that at the age of 4, I lectured him on morality. Now, obviously, I don't remember it, but he said, your sense of justice was so apparent because my uncle must have said something that struck me as unjust or immoral, and I put my foot down. Uh, Suffice to say, I don't see myself as a moral person now. And I mean that at the most basic level, because I have the advantage of looking back over 66 years. And I think there was a very clear disconnect between my view of myself as a person of integrity. And I made most choices based on what I thought was my personal, conscience driven morality and the impact on the world, on the people who came in contact with me. And unless morality is an abstract notion, I'm starting to realize morality is something that has to be weighed alongside how one is in the world and the impact on people around you, around me. And in that sense, for me, this is very personal because in the last, I want to say, it is only in the last 5 to 7 years that this has hit me like a ton of bricks. That, oh my God, I have created so much damage in the world because my actions were not moral. Now, I'm not talking of every action of mine, mind you. I'm talking of many actions that were actions that landed on other people to their detriment and therefore were immoral. So that's the quickest way I can tell you uh, my my place in this conversation. And I welcome this conversation because, like you, Rukmini, I don't wish to expound on what morality is, even though I have so many ideas and I can give the historical context about the development of morality. I can talk about the moral development of individuals and children, but this is a personal topic for me. Yeah, I am not a very moral person. I'm going to stop there.
I'm very interested in how you came to that conclusion, Ashok, that I'm not a moral person. Is it just about assessing the impact you've had on others, or was there a process which allowed you to say, I am not moral, and it's not about the other person's responsibility around how they used my presence in their life to their detriment? Because that, I mean, I can see for myself that that may be a rather seductive line of thought, that they are responsible for how they deal with my presence in their lives.
Let me go back to one of your first opening statements when you talked of morality as basically coming from or originating in an individual's conscience, which is what I have always thought morality was and what the origins of morality were. There are two things that completely destroyed that notion in me. The first was my own interest in, lifelong interest in human evolution, the history of societies, histories of civilizations, and my own consulting work in conflict resolution as well as democracy. I realized that no, morality at its foundational level didn't come out of the individual, it came out of the group. In other words, for an individual, let's just take the nomad, the hunter gatherer. Morality was almost irrelevant. The only morality was survival. The only morality and the biological instincts for men to have sex with as many women as possible and procreate. For women, whatever maternal instincts might the hunter gatherer women might have had to nurture, to raise and nurture their children. Those are biological instincts. But every group functions on the basis of a common morality. And that morality is literally, I would step back from even the word morality because it's loaded. And I would go to I would use the word values. A common set of values is what keeps a group going. And at the most, let's just take the most barbaric. I don't use it in a negative way at all, but to contrast from the more developed civilizations, whether it was Egyptian or Chinese or whatever, uh, the most barbaric subsistence groups had very strong values which kept them together. Without those values, they would disappear, they'd be wiped out. Now, I see the idea of morality itself as a more evolved form of social values. Now, this is just my historic sense, and I'll just put this out there before I answer your question, Rukmini. How did I come to this self-flagellation, if you must? Um, at some point, and this definitely all highly evolved civilizations. I say civilizations, not so much societies, because societies are part of civilizations. In every highly evolved civilizations, the elite, and by elite I mean people who had the privilege of sitting back and thinking about their self. The ordinary person didn't. They developed they started developing the idea of personal conscience. And this was tied in with religion at many levels. There are many religions, Hinduism, for instance, Christianity later, which put the onus on morality on the self, not on the book. In other words, you had to figure out how to live in the world. Okay. And then the Enlightenment process, European Enlightenment, fixed on, I mean, literally put the entire emphasis on morality on the individual conscience. Okay. In other words, it was to hell with what society tells you. What do you think? Are you just following the mass, or do you have you thought these things through, and are you courageous enough to act for yourself? This is, I mean, people don't like me saying this. purely Western concept. Okay, which the West has lost now. That's a different matter. But just to say that my cognitive, intellectual understanding of morality has become far more complex over the past 20 to 30 years. Why did who I see myself as a child of the Enlightenment, as a person who's valued reason and logic and the universal, as opposed to the sectarian or the partisan or the provincial. How did someone like me, who, and I can say this uh, without any embarrassment, I actually have more than most people tried to follow my own personal sense of responsibility and morality. It hasn't worked out well for me. That's a different matter. But I really have. Now, but here's the price that I have paid. Or rather, it's in the last 15 years, but mostly 10 years, that I have become very conscious of the price that I have paid and the price that other people have paid for my emphatic moral existence or emphatically moral existence. First, the price that others have paid, starting with my family, my not just nuclear. When Indians talk of family, we don't talk of nuclear family. We talk of extended families. Okay, the extended family bore the brunt of my emphatic morality. And these are simple people. Don't get me wrong, they are doctors and engineers and computer scientists, but they are simple people. They are simple, they are just doing what society tells them to do because it works for them. And here I come riding on my white horse, trying to tell them that they are mindless automatons and that they are millennia of cultural practices, whether it's arranged marriage or the caste system or whatever, are unjust and immoral. Not that my family was very casteist. Even as a professional middle class family, they were conscious of the problems with caste, but it's deeply embedded in every Indian. Now, in my morality made me arrogant, and I attacked them. That's just one. I did the same thing to larger Indian society with my neighbors in Bangalore or wherever I lived, with uh, with civil society, with with my clients. I brought an unrelenting notion of what is right and wrong to all my work, and I prided myself saying that I don't mind if I lose clients. I don't mind if I get bankrupt, but I will follow the dictates of my mind and my morality. In my mind, these were not separate. Unlike most people who separate mind and heart, I don't. My morality, my emotional reactions come out of my uh, cognitive slogging, hard work. So that's the personal, uh, my personal impact on the world. And I ended up losing most of my community, okay, in a disastrous way. Personally, my morality left me completely bereft of any kind of social support. And remember, it's my hypothesis that morality started with the group, not with the individual. I am a perfect example of an individual who had or thought he had a very sophisticated idea of of morality and who ended up without society. So framing it this way, I have no problem saying I'm a loser. I'm a loser because I followed my conscience like nobody I know. I'm sure there are exceptional people who have followed their conscience all through, but I have really, really followed my conscience. And I have caused people enormous harm. And I have been personally destroyed, professionally destroyed by it. So that's why today in this conversation, more than any of the other conversations we have had, Rukmini, I'm really struggling with not just what morality is. I think I have a fairly good handle of what it is, but how to be moral in a way that doesn't destroy either the people who love you or yourself.
What you said, Ashok, might sound rather dissuasive from the idea of morality as people are listening in. So, yeah, I also want to remind all of us that the attempt here is to be metacognitive in terms of also noticing uh, how we are thinking as we are thinking and sharing what we're doing here. So to also invite us to notice the thought patterns that are running in this context in the formation of morality and the act of morality. So some questions that come to mind, Ashok, as I heard you, is when we, oh, when I label something or someone as immoral, am I doing it as an act of discernment, or does it also come from a, a, a denial or a refusal of complexity, of acknowledging the complexity that exists in someone's reality, which I may not be cognizant of, right? And of course, in a larger world context, I would think uh, calling something immoral may sometimes be necessary when it's warranted. For example, when there's a genocide or where there's ethnic cleansing or there's caste-based violence or things like that. Yeah, those actions seem immoral and it feels important to call it out. But even in those contexts, I would reckon the moral label is a doorway into a deeper conversation and not really a full stop with the label. And therefore, I'm also present to the dangers of the label of immorality as something that can stop myself from thinking. Right? Labeling someone immoral might give me the permission to not be empathetic, to flatten histories sometimes, or to simplify motives. It can feel like it gives me clarity when I've labeled someone as immoral, but it could also indicate a collapse of my own imagination in the process. So yeah, present to the dangers of of using morality in that way as well.
Thank you and this is the second time you said it, so I really want to pick up on something very important that you have said, that we use morality, or the moment we condemn something as immoral, it stops us thinking. You also said it stops the process of empathizing, it stops the process of any dialogue or conversation, right? I want to really build on that. But again, first a caveat. I am not a postmodernist. I am emphatically not a relativist. I don't believe in cultural, philosophic, or moral relativism. I think that is a cop out, a wimp out. It's intellectual lethargy and exceptionally dangerous, as has happened to the last couple of generations of Westerners coming out of their educational institutions. American universities and schools have destroyed public morality through their advocacy of cultural, philosophic, and moral relativism. So, not my, I don't care for it. But having said that, you touched on something that is very central to me, which is thinking. Because unlike a lot of mediators and therapists and people, I don't valorize feeling. I don't valorize emotions because they're normal, they're natural. Everybody feels. It's a biological thing. You don't have to make any effort. You don't have to school yourself. It is normal. Okay. And you have very little control over it, your emotions, for instance. But thinking is, as far as we know, unique to Homo sapiens. We call ourselves Homo sapiens, wise humans, which is a stretch. I really don't think most of us, 99.999%, are wise at all. But we like to think of ourselves as wise. So, and wisdom is based not on feeling, it's based on thinking. Now, if thinking is so central to what distinguishes us from other species, then we have a responsibility to learn how to think. In other words, if a child was raised by wolves, it would never learn human language. I have discovered that most people, professionals, highly educated people, really don't know how to think. Don't know. They're clueless. You can be a PhD and not know how to think. What you have is a ton of information that your emotional and rudimentary cognitive mind processes and spews out. So thinking is a very unusual, disciplined activity. And here's where morality is so terrifyingly dangerous. If actually, I'll rephrase that. Here's where moral certainty is dangerous. If I think I know, either because my sacred book tells me, my prophet tells me, my political leader tells me, or I've had a few lived experiences that have taught me, and therefore I know, I'm incapable of thinking anymore. So it's not relativism as much as the capacity to remain skeptical. And this is, again, and this is why I'm such a fan of the Enlightenment. And please don't tell me about colonization, slavery, etc. The Enlightenment era doesn't mean everything was hunky-dory. We are humans, we are messed up. But what was wonderful about the Enlightenment is that it gave rise to scientific thinking. And what a lot of critics of science don't understand is science is not certainty. Science never tells you what is true. Science is based on the idea of falsification, which means a good scientist puts out a hypothesis that is meant to be tested and falsified. Okay, so I would like to bring the same approach to morality. My lived experience, which is personally important for me, my analysis, my knowledge of history, my understanding of a lot of things leads me to certain moral conclusions. I owe it to myself as a thinking person to be skeptical of my own moral conclusions. And for me, that is definition of wisdom. You can't be dumb, ignorant, and wise. Wisdom requires enormous understanding of the world. In other words, don't get me wrong, you can be living in a African village or an Asian hamlet, totally clueless about geopolitics or you've never read a book, but in your environment, you understand that environment deeply. You have studied that environment phenomenally. And with that knowledge, you engage with the world, which is why throughout history, human history, grandmothers, grandfathers, elderly uncles and aunts, people went to them because they understood that context. And they were also, this deep understanding made them compassionate. Compassion for me is not a goody-goody thing. Neither is empathy. Compassion comes from recognizing the frailty and fallibilities of human beings. However much I have learned, however much I know, I'm just a bloody human who can mess up. I could be, I could say something wise today, and tomorrow I could say something foolish. It's that humility that creates compassion for those who are not like us. It's that humility that allows us to put ourselves in the shoes of someone whose behavior is utterly offensive to us, despicable. So, yeah, for me, uh, morality has to be okay. It's not water, it has to be more like mercury. It's fluid, but it has substance. And probably like mercury, it has power, you know. So let me ask you a question here, and this is a metacognitive question. Take a step back from this conversation, Rukmini, and observe your own mind, not your opinions, not your feelings. Actually, feelings can also, because at a metacognitive level, these two kind of work together. What if you could draw a picture? What are the things in your mind that you would include in the picture? And second part of the question, how are you balancing these different things? How are you saying, okay, A is not very important. B is interesting, but I don't want to go there because it's too personal. C is wow. So if you can paint a picture for us of all the elements in your mind, right, in these 43 minutes of this conversation, and then tell us the relationship between those and you. We could try to model one aspect of metacognition. Take your time. Meanwhile, I'll invite everyone else. Please put down your thoughts and questions. Please keep putting them down on chat.
Feels like I'm trying to pick out a few panels from what looks like a huge collage of things already. There is one part of me that's definitely wanting to, I think, hold morality as sacred and necessary, and therefore wanting to defend the morality in all of us here. So that's certainly present. There's also recognition of the struggle of moral practice in the world, in my work, and a lot of emotions associated with it, which are not entirely pleasant. Also because it brings up a lot of questions around my identity as a human. Uh, and yeah, what it means to be human in moments when I may not be moral. Am I still human, or is that identity completely lost? Which is a scary proposition. One very bubbly panel is also about which actually seems very simple, actually, that if I am truly committed to practicing morality in any given moment, maybe the question that I ask myself is not who is right, but what is the truth?
Can you just hold the thought for a sorry? Sarah says her chat has been disabled. Can we just get her back on chat?
Sure. The posting is transferred to you. Are you able to go down to the chat function and change the settings? There should be those 3 buttons on the chat, which...
Right.
It seems to be set to only chat with the host.
Chat. Oh man. Okay. This is so weird. I see ask all to unmute, mute participants, allow people to mute, enable waiting room, hide profile. Yeah, go on.
This is the setting in the chat box. If you go down to the chat box, there's options there.
Well, maybe
meeting group, chat, and anyone directly.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, Sarah and others.
Enable.
Can you just test and see that you are able to chat? Just send a, yeah, perfect. And can I just ask that while Rukmini and I are having this conversation and Rukmini is speaking, I want you to try to answer this question. What are the different ideas? Don't judge them. Don't tell us what you're feeling. But what are the different ideas or concepts that are there in your mind right now, given the last 45 minutes? Okay, if you can just put them down as categories, or Rukmini used the word panels, dispassionately, this itself is a huge first step to metacognition. Okay, please, Rukmini, sorry, continue.
I was, yeah, I think what I was talking about last was that panel around the shift of questions and a shift of stance is uh, about if I were to attempt to be truly moral, then the question would not be about who is right, which is often what is purported to be morality when we slip into moral tribalism, I suppose. Uh, and if we were to really step out of that, then the question wouldn't be who's right, but what is the truth here? And that will lead to a very deep inquiry instead of establishing a hierarchy of right and wrong.
I love it. So I'm going to ask you a follow-up question. You used in one sentence two things. What is morality? And you talked of it in terms of the truth. So I'm going to ask you to talk about the difference between morality and truth. Or what do you see as the similarities between morality and truth? Are they pretty much the same thing?
I think that they're different things in that the truth is, and I'm part of it. And morality is something that if I actively work towards it, I have some agency over, in that I can seek to be moral, and the process of seeking to be moral may also support me in uh, understanding at least one part of the truth, if not the whole truth. Uh, but morality essentially is a process of seeking, and there is some access to that. There is, yeah, the access to truth is maybe just as an observer, uh, and in a very inert way. There's more active access to morality.
Uh, Hearing you talk, something comes to mind. I'll try to frame it because it's a little inchoate. For me, the word truth is intimately related not with morality at all, but to reality. For me, something is true if it's real. Something is untrue if it is fiction. Okay, however valuable that fiction is. Fiction is usually, a good fiction is almost always extremely valuable. So if truth is the closest approximation we can get to reality, what does that make morality? So here's the way I look at it. If I'm living in a very dangerous neighborhood, but I understand the truth, just hypothetically, I understand the truth of my reality. My reality, hypothetically speaking, is that it's a very dangerous environment. There are gangs, there are thugs, families are very dysfunctional, there's violence. and my neighbor is potentially dangerous. And if I don't do anything first, he could come in and destroy me and my family. Is it moral for me to get rid of my neighbor? By that I mean neutralize him, whether it's killing him or whatever, because I know, because I really understand the neighborhood and I understand the neighbor's background. He's a murderer and he's been eyeing my I don't know, my gadgets or my wife or children. Is it moral for me to destroy him, kill him, or wound him so that he cannot harm me or my family? If it is, what's the relationship between morality and uh, the truth? Is the truth, which is real, more important than morality, and are they distinct? And while Rukmini is responding to that, all of you feel free to respond to that question on chat. Thank you, Sarah.
As I stay with that exploration, there's also a lot that comes up around the ethical nature of my identity, right? And how the ethical nature of that identity is questioned if I were to choose to act in a manner that puts my virtue into question. And if I've grown up in a society where virtue was essential for survival, being a good girl was necessary to survive in the patriarchy, um, then I might be hardwired to protect that virtue at all costs, which then has an implication on what decision I make in that given situation. Right? So then am I even thinking of morality when it comes to making that decision about protecting my family against someone who may potentially be harming that family? So in that process, while I may still label my decision to not harm my neighbor as a moral decision, what I'm perhaps doing in the process is not so much upholding my ethics as much as protecting the coherence of the story I tell myself about myself, that I am a good person in a bad world, and that story is so essential for my survival.
Thank you.
And
Thank you. Sorry, go on.
I'm also thinking of how that story might prevent me from actually engage with the damage that I may be participating in being passive.
And you're bringing in another very important element into our morality tale, identity. And you spelled that out very well. Uh, and I would imagine that one's moral values, particularly religious values, have always contributed to one's identity. throughout history. But I have, even when I was growing up in the 60s and 70s, the question of identity never loomed as intensely as it does now. I grew up in a very multicultural environment. Like I said in 2 sessions ago, the house on the left was occupied by Christians, the house on the right was occupied by Muslims. We grew up in an extremely cosmopolitan environment. And our identities were as Indians and professional. My father was an accountant, someone else's father was an engineer. Some kids were good at cricket or football, or I was good at badminton. Uh, our identities were based on what we did and the family. Today, particularly in the West, but it's seeped into the urban environments of the South and the East. Our identities are political. Uh, People are feminists. People are pro-Palestine. People are free market or libertarian. And this identity has become, this identity has come with its own pre-packaged set of moral values. In other words, if you're a feminist, this is your morality. You have to believe in these. If you're a post-colonialist, whatever that might be, this is how you should look at the world. This is how you should live in it. And apart from the fact that, again, my biggest grouse with identity politics is that it makes you dumb. I now no, 5 years ago when I was teaching my courses, I would be a little softer, and I would say things like, it makes it hard for you to really engage in critical thinking. But now the world is in such a mess. I'll be brutal. It makes you stupid because you've borrowed a set of prepackaged ideas which came with their own prepackaged values and morals. And that's the lens with which you not only look at the world, but you engage with the world. You are no better than a witless animal. I'm very deliberately saying this because we are Homo sapiens. We think we are above the beasts. Well, then show it. Show it. Show it in the way you learn from the world. Show it in the way you uh, process the information coming into your head. Show it in the way you build your own knowledge, not knowledge from books or graduate programs or any of those. But because knowledge can't be acquired, it has to be developed individually in your own minds. Show it in the way you engage with skepticism, with humility in the world. And when I say current, starting in the 1960s, the uh, the development of political ideologies, mainstreaming of it, and the development of political identity has literally made the West stupid. And this is one of the biggest reasons why the West is going down. And in a way, and I might be veering off, but I'll stop with this. In a way, this is why the Arab countries will survive. If India continues down a right-wing Hindutva path, it will survive. Traditional African societies will survive. But anyone who buys into the Western cultural and social model will be destroyed. because they don't understand. The Americans, I live in Washington, D.C., if you don't know, the Americans, my entire peer group, they don't understand reality. They have no clue about what reality is. They are living in a world that's been constructed by their political ideologies and the way they want the world to be. That's fantasy. That's fairy tale. So, coming back to the topic at hand, I think if morality is not deeply correlated with reality, and if it becomes an integral part of one's identity, very dangerous. Not because I, Ashok, or you, Rukmini, don't have the capacity to do the deep thinking ourselves. But if we do that and we think we've arrived at a pure, pristine morality with which we judge the world, who are we to judge someone else with their pure, pristine morality? The only way Ashok's pristine morality can survive is if he becomes a dictator and tells people, this is my word, this is my truth. I have received it from either my extensive study or the gods came down to me and gave me this, and there will be no more questions. It's a dictatorial approach to morality. I guess what I'm saying is when morality seeps into our sense of self, thinking goes out of the window, compassion goes out of the window, because we zero in on anyone whose morality, whose reality, whose truth, even marginally, is different from us. I know I've thrown a lot at you. I know that people are starting to respond, which is wonderful. Feel free to challenge anything. Feel free to put your thoughts. Most of all, and this is what I want to encourage anyone who is part of this, please try to ask questions. We want your reflections, we want your thought, but most of all, we prize your questions because that's what keeps the conversation going. So, Rukmini, why don't you kind of have the semi last word before we take on the audience's questions or thoughts?
Pick up on one piece that you spoke about in terms of using morality to judge the world. Uh, if I'm using morality to judge the world, that's identity masquerading as morality. I wouldn't think it is morality at all. I mean, morality helps me explore the world, not judge it.
Sorry, but you're talking of your morality because there are many other moral stances that my religious fundamentalist friends, their morality is dependent on judging the world.
And again, coming back to that, I mean, if morality has to become yours or mine, it is not morality, right? Then it is identity.
I agree with you.
Yeah. So in that sense, that there cannot be my morality. I mean, if there is morality in me as a human being, it will allow me to connect with life. It will allow me to ask questions about what is this and how do I explore this and know this further, and then figure out if I want to engage with it or not. And that's not morality coming from me, but through me.
Would you say that again? I agree with you, but I that's not my experience of other people's morality at all. The morality of the communist, the Islamic fundamentalists, the Hindu fundamentalists, uh, is very clear. Their morality is pure and is used to judge the rest of the world. And they say they are being moral. So while I hear what you are saying, and I love that idea of morality, that's not my experience of other people's morality.
I'm holding morality as an ideal,
Right.
as something to aspire to. I mean, like we would aspire to justice or to beauty or goodness or truth. And similarly, there is morality. So, like, there can't be my justice and my beauty, there can't be my morality. Right? There is morality which is a doorway to connection, and that just exists. It doesn't belong to me, or I certainly don't own it. I can
Thank you.
allow, I can develop the muscle or what I've referred to earlier as moral stamina for it to flow through me. But all I can be is a vessel for it and not really own it.
Hearing you, and I love the idea, and it's maybe something we can talk a little. We can explore it. Uh, I'm wondering if you want to look at the comments that are there and pick up one and respond to it. Pick up any, and I will take another one.
Looking at Yona's comment around how we characterize approaches which feel important in spite of not being able to articulate, make a logical case for it. And yeah, and I see so much of that in the peace building world, right? That there's morality then becomes a very convenient shield to use because it cannot be argued against, and therefore I can say that this is right, and that there's no way. If I, let's say, call something a genocide, you can't really make a statement which is pro genocide because that's to your disadvantage. So then the idea of morality gets, I suppose, appropriated as a shield, but is that really even morality in that case? That's yeah, that remains the question.
Thank you. Uh, I'm going to pick up Sarah's last one that she put out there. Are we individuals using the word concept morality, even using and understanding it correctly? You touch on something that I love doing, as you know, Sarah, because you attended many of my sessions. Uh, I think I love defining, redefining things because it's part of my bias is that most people don't understand the words they use. Uh, and morality, uh, see, unlike words like truth or justice or equality or even love or empathy, a word that I really detest is empathy because most people have no clue what it is. Um, but unlike those words, morality is not a word that a lot of people will use commonly, but they act with it or on it. And in other words, it's religious people use the word morality all the time, and some activists use it. The average person, unless pushed, uh, like I never heard my parents use the word morality, even though they had very clear morals. And the only time my mother used that word, as far as I can remember, is when in my 20s, I changed girlfriends. And she was so upset. She accused me of being immoral. And uh, but what I mean is that, the word morality gets used by ordinary people only under exceptional situations. So coming back to Sarah's, yes, and I want to go back to two things here, and I'm not trying to resolve them, but an interesting dilemma is one, the way Rukmini framed morality as something that is like truth and beauty and goodness, and something that we allow it to flow through us. I'm using my own words, but that's how I understood. Like there's beauty in the world. Okay, there's truth. Truth is out there. It is, and Rukmini sees morality too as that, in that category. Am I doing justice to, at least at a simple level, the way you articulated morality, Rukmini? Okay, good. Uh, and there is the other kind, which is what I was grasping for, which is there is no such thing as morality. There is reality. The reality for a hunter gatherer are wild beasts, the distinction between poisonous berries and edible berries, the capacity to hold the family and tribe or clan together. That's the reality. Nature, thunderstorms, snakes. That's the reality. And morality for that group, I think, comes out of whatever allows them to survive. So it's not an abstract thing, it's a very real thing. So to expect, preemptively killing your neighbor before he destroys your family, for that wandering tribe to attack a neighboring tribe which is trying to use the same watering hole may be a moral act. The idea that one should not kill is a far more sophisticated and evolved morality. Christianity created that at one level. Buddhism talked about the interrelatedness of all species and that we should not harm other species. But as Krishna told Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, you have to kill your cousins in battle because that is your duty to protect your side of the family. A very disturbing idea coming from a god. And I think it speaks to a very specific kind of, uh, it speaks to a very specific relationship between what is real and what kind of conduct is expected of you. And that conduct that's expected of you in that environment is what has become morality. Fast forward 2025, American campuses, or in my social environment in DC, where uh, these are very multicultural environments, postmodernist, where the most important thing for most of my peers is diversity. And coming with diversity, equity, inclusion, etc., etc. The morality of this group, which is huge, by the way, it's not a small group, is never criticize a minority. Even if African Americans are not helping themselves, and there's something in their culture that prevents them from succeeding, you have a moral right not to criticize them. The same goes for Muslims. The same goes for indigenous people. That's their morality. So I'm going to stop here. I see there are, so I think the question is, how do we define morality? Is it something that exists outside of ourselves that we, in our wisdom, tap into? Or is it a social construct because of the pressures and realities of that society? Nabil says, I'm curious of the idea of universal values in defining morality. Example, globalism versus the subjectivity of morality based on one's surrounding social milieu, nationalism. Uh, sorry. Uh, yeah, and how they may be. I struggle with really working. And how they come in clash based on real politics, close border. Absolutely, Nabil. This is one of the reasons the Democratic Party here, the Labour Party in the UK, and others are totally struggling because their morality has become, it is based on a political ideology, is not based on protecting themselves. Okay, so we have 10 minutes. It's a very small group, so I'm going to invite each one of you one at a time. Let's just say 1 minute, maximum 90 seconds. We'd like to hear your voices. Feel free to reflect, disagree, or ask questions. And as always, I love questions, and any question you ask, uh, we will find a way to respond to them, even if it's after the session. So, who would like to go first? Don't feel shy. Someone's got to go. Nabil.
Yes, I can go first. I think I think the thing that I really am struggling with when thinking of defining morality is also the idea of objectivity, right? When I come across different wars and different situations, there's so much information out there that defining a perspective of, for lack of a better word, what is right and what is real is so difficult that I often am like caught up between the idea of what is morally right and morally wrong. And as a result, like, you want to give benefit to all parties involved, but it is a really difficult thing because you also struggle as an outsider to be able to understand the context and perspective, but also be an outsider in the way in which one is able to see things which others are not able to see. So I think that is what I struggle with. Like, how do I define objectivity for myself while also staying true to my subjectivity?
Great. Can I invite you to just put it down on chat so that we preserve that and can come back to it another time? Uh, who would like to go next? Your silence will mean we have less time.
Okay. Ashok, I was really energized by your reference to the Gita there, and that amazing moment of advice which seems to exist in some kind of tension with other teachings around ahimsa and whatnot. It made me wonder if what morality could offer that, say, a rationalist philosophical approach might not be able to do as well, is having bunch of different tools which exist in tension with each other in theory, but in real life lend a certain in real life seem to work or to flow with human initiative.
Thank you, Yuna. Thank you. Sarah, Quanta has unmuted. So Quanta, go first.
Oh, thank you. I was wondering, about the fact that American society is so diverse in many ways that it will not survive. And I like to offer actually a different opinion in that uh, diversity is part of life. The more diverse a culture or even a family is, the better it is survival, because when there is homogeneous conditions, the survival actually is more in danger than in diverse conditions. So I do think that, in fact, America has a great potential to become an exemplary global society because of its diversity, and people are trying with problems, at least trying to learn from one another and live with each other. So I don't think America is in danger of extinction.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I appreciate your opinion, and it's one that many of my peers in democracy, diversity, peace building hold. So thank you for that. Sarah.
I'm working through a lot of different, trying to shift my way of thinking, my way of approaching things. And morality is absolutely doesn't figure in it because growing up, I grew up in a non-religious environment. This was never a focus. I struggled with the word God because we use it all the time. God this, God bless you, God damn it, etc. So it was a thing that hit me when I was quite young. But as far as any kind of moral explanation, these were never given. Thank goodness, because they were not relevant in my family under any circumstances, however you want to define morality. So for me, it is not difficult to see that morality is just a construct, a human construct to more or less, what I used to call in teaching, no yabbits, yes, but the whataboutism that we talk about now, I feel that really falls into that category. So I think we're talking about conversation levels, morality is kind of up here in the clouds, and then we filter down to things like truth. What does that mean? And so talking about the difference between how morality for certain people is a little bit fluid. And there's an example, a long time ago, and it was discovered that there was this whole thing about marriage being about families and so on. But with the Kung Bushmen, for example, they would marry off their couples very early, but it didn't necessarily mean that that couple would stay the family unit. Sometimes they branched out and mated with other people because that was more their physical reality in procreative home building reality was more relevant to them than to the original marriage. The marriage stayed, and that kept as a combination, but this other moral deviance was also accepted because it physically worked better. Namely, they actually had children that were viable and so on.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you very much. And some of you have already alluded to this, but I want to end with your putting on chat your emotional state vis-a-vis this conversation. What are you feeling right now over the past, coming out of these 90 minutes? Just put it on chat. I'm glad your mystification is pleasant and not otherwise, Yara. Football of emotions, okay. But no goals, huh? And before you leave, I do have a request of all of you. Thank you, Kota. Okay. Now, here's what I would ask of you. These conversations are free. We don't want to charge for them. But the richness of these conversations will require more people signing on, showing up. So please look into your own groups and invite people to try them out. Because, and here's, I'll explain my fear, my emotional state. I really value these conversations with Rukmini. I look forward to these every week. But I worry that one day it'll be just she and me talking, which is okay. But that is not why we started these. So please feel, not just feel free, please do actively try to look through your Rolodex, your network, and identify people who would be interested in being part of these conversations. So with that, thank you very much. And enjoy what's left of your Sunday, folks. Thank you very much, everyone. Ta-da.
Thanks a lot. That was fun.
Thank you, Sarah.
Have a good one.